It's been a tough year. One demoralizing event or action after the next just seems to serve as fuel to this absolute dumpster fire of sadness that is 2020. So I'm grateful for the few distractions that shine a little bit of light on these days, like the Yakuza Remastered collection I acquired before everything really started to go down. I'm a recent fan of the franchise, but it certainly has swept me in. I got Kiwami 1 through PlayStation Plus and loved it. Hunting down the platinum was tough but super rewarding, and when I saw Kiwami 2 on sale, I instantly grabbed it. Kiwami 2 has grown into one of my, if not my, favorite game of all time. The platinum was also much easier than the first one. Around Christmas time, 1 year after that, I grabbed Yakuza 0. Finished it, loved it, but got stuck on the extra climax battles fight and decided to hunt for the platinum another time. So, fast forward to late August and I've been playing Yakuza 3 since February and have just finished the side hitman missions after recently reached the end of the story. I'm sure you can sympathize with why playing a game in this year might have taken so long, especially when you're trying to dedicate most of your time to making sure you survive this year in the outside world. Anyway, come to look at the trophy list to see what my next target should be, and why not pick the minigame one? It was relatively simple in Kiwami 1 and 2, just participate in all of them. That's when I saw it. Minigame Master. Details? Complete all minigames. If you know anything about the Yakuza minigames, it's just how insanely difficult they can be to complete. People go a little crazy when you have to complete certain difficulty variations for related trophies. So having to complete them 100%, all difficulties, all challenges, and all their unique quirks, well, I don't think it's something anyone in my position would ever relish. It was pretty late in the night when I made this discovery, and I decided that was it. Another platinum in this series I wasn't going to achieve because the requirements are too hard. This year strikes again and beats me down for yet another time. However, when I woke up in the morning, I decided no, I will not let this beat me. I will have something for this year, a challenge that is great but surmountable. It will be difficult, but it is achievable, and even though it will probably take forever, I will not give up on this. I will try and try again until I get it and prove to myself that I can reach deep and take what I want this year. So that's exactly what I did, but holy shit did it ever take some effort. This is a simple remaster of a PS3 game, so the controls are the clunkiest they've ever been in the series for me, and there are some serious quirks that make it so damn difficult to do what you want to. This is even more frustrating when I think at least one of the problems arose from porting the game from a PS3 controller to a PS4 one. Alas, I have the platinum now, and I want to quickly go through the list and show you just how I did it. The first 11 trophies are all standard trophies collected for finishing the chapters and the game itself. These were simple, obviously, and are all linked to defeating different bosses in the game. That's how most chapters ended, with the exception of 2. The narrative of the story follows a similar structure. A set of events requires Kiryu to help those in need, and these situations escalate until there's a climatic battle with the person. But I think with some of the mystery gone, and how they prefer more emotional rather than dramatic tones for their endings, the dramatic nature of the serious Japanese crime drama is swept aside. This is the least case for Yakuza 3, and it works. It still isn't anywhere near as dramatic as some of the Nishiki scenes from Kiwami, but it is an ending that manages to retain the dramatic tone to a satisfying degree. The story is also self-contained enough to really get the player hooked into the mysteries without confusing them too hard, but still manages to advance the overall narrative of the organizations like the Tojo clan linked to the series. The next 5 trophies are all linked to the completion of Substories. Once you complete them all, you'll possess all 5 trophies. The Substories are up to their usual quirky and excellent standards with little variation in quality, generally between them all. What I notice is different this time around is some of the missions have 2 different states of either finished or complete, distinguished by a star in the completion menu. This added some nice variation and provided an incentive to actually try and succeed with the mission rather than simply going through the motions. Of course, there are some that can only be completed at certain stages and or with certain characters accompanying you, leaving either that time there or during the post game as the only places to finish them. Surprisingly, there are a handful of sub-stories that are voiced and possess cutscenes. I particularly enjoyed this little murder mystery at Cafe Alps, which introduces gameplay elements only associated with this one mission. These self-contained stories were wonderfully done, and I feel like they could be short snippets of a main game if they didn't wrap up so neatly. Of course, as is tradition, once all sub-stories are finished, the secret boss is your last goal. This time around, if you're all maxed out of course, he's not as difficult to take on, especially with a few cheesy heat action spam, but still, It is a comical difficulty spike. I don't think I've ever finished a fight with him without using the healing item, which is significant because as you try and work towards the platinum in the Yakuza game, you are usually left with challenges in the endgame that do not allow you access to such items. So you become pretty used to not relying on them until you reach the secret boss. Once the boss is down, you get infinite ammo golden pistols, which makes the New Game Plus playthroughs immensely easier even on the most challenging difficulties, and you will have all the sub-story related trophies.
これ受け取ってほしいんだ。ママ？も
う伊達さんって冗談ばっかり。これさやちゃんに渡す指輪でしょ？
いや違うんだ。これはママに。
本気なの？
ああ、もちろん。ママ、俺はずっと。
出てって。
え？
帰ってくれる？今日はもうお店を閉めるから。
いや、その。
伊達さん、ここまでお世話になっていて申し訳ないけど、二度とお店に来ないで。
え？
The next trophy is for completing the Hitman missions, which play out fully towards the back end of the story and over both locations. This is very much similar to the street bosses seen in the previous game, and are basically just mini boss fights, each with their own style of fighting. Nothing is particularly too difficult until maybe the end, but if you have the right gear and healing items, you should be fine. The mini storyline is charming in a way it connects to the main overall narrative of the series, and it has some goofy moments for sure, but probably gets spread a little too thin over the many missions and locations it takes place in. It still has memorable moments though, and it is a fun and more robust set of missions to complete. Next up is Fat Cat, which Tatsu was spending over 300,000 yen, which isn't particularly difficult considering the 13 million I had coming in when I got this trophy. With the gambling games and the tendency to rack up the cash later on in these games, this really is just a novelty trophy representing some fantasy I'm sure some people have. The actual number of hostesses this time was pretty overwhelming considering how long it can take to woo them over. The sessions last quite a while and you'll need multiple to max out their connection with you, and you can't really avoid them if you're going for the platinum since you need to have all of them maxed out for a sub-story that is attached for maximizing that connection. However, there is a real talent displayed here considering one hostess isn't particularly worse than any other. The conversations all hold a high level of quality, and that is honestly impressive considering how much they must have written for each of them. Fashionista is a trophy that was extremely tedious to acquire. It is basically a hostess dress-up game based on 4 characteristics that are correlated with certain pieces of outfits and should be matched to random requests generated by the game's guests. It loses its charm quickly and becomes repetitive fast. No matter how much you enjoy the dress-up games, the repetitive nature and slow drip of rewards kill all enthusiasm to continue with it long enough to get the items you need to obtain the trophy, let alone to achieve the number 1 rank for a sub-story, effectively finishing the minigame for one of the 2 characters available. I did it anyway and I still can't figure out why. Thankfully the minigame is done a little bit better in Yakuza 4 and the trophy is more engaging there too. Next was the Key Collector trophy. Not much to say here, these are basically just the collectibles of the game. Some are in really obvious places and some require you to really look for them, often in first person. The rewards for them are always good though, especially the gambling cheat items. I appreciate the novelty of having them as coin lockers and the fact that they're available in both locations. Alright, the next 2 trophies are just ordering the most expensive item on the menu at each restaurant and finishing 10 battles with a heat action. Just remember that Pronto in Kamurocho has 2 different menus, one at the day, one at night, and you should be good. Other than that, I think it's pretty common to end most street battles with heat actions, especially towards the end when you have so many unlocked. The Colosseum, one of the staples of the Yakuza game. So much so it's often worked into the main narrative themselves. I love the Colosseum. So many variation in enemies and tournaments means the matches stay fresh. It's the perfect place to hone your combat skills and earn some money and XP in the process. Each enemy is unique so you can focus on perfecting your moves against them, such as lining up the perfect counter. But there is no one enemy that you can't just brute force your way through. If I do have any complaints, it's that some of the tournaments are much weaker than others. Why would I play a boxing match where I can't even grab compared to much more enjoyable breakout or heated floor matches? Also, the requirements to unlock certain tournaments don't really seem to serve any real purpose. Next trophy is modding a weapon. Not very difficult. I think I picked up all the instructions and materials I needed just by playing the game. The durability of weapons, even when modded, is low and kinda stops you from using them, let alone modding them. The next two trophies are just interacting with characters that introduce you to other ways of learning combat moves rather than the upgrade screen. The blogging debut trophy introduces you to revelations, which are these wacky sort of events that happen on the streets of Japan that Kiryu can catch a glimpse of. They are accompanied with QTEs, and if you manage to comment the right phrase after it all goes down, Kiryu will blog about what he just witnessed and subsequently learn a new move. The Path of the Warrior trophy is basically achieved by meeting masters that can teach you new moves in an extended tutorial kind of way. Oh, and the weapons mod is also a master, but it doesn't teach you anything. Before we get onto the last big trophies of the mini-games, legend difficulty, and the post-game challenges, the last trophies after that are all super straightforward, so I'll just list them here, alright? Marathon runner, run as long as a marathon. Running in fight counts too, that's how I finished mine. Careless dragon, knock over 100 people. Just old men in this case. Yakuza 4 has an easier time with this odd trophy. People watcher, just look at goons that are just standing around while in first person 3 times. Easy. Compulsive vandal. Break 30 weapons picked up in battle. Might be tough if you don't pick up weapons too much, even though couches and stuff like that count as weapons, but the amount of stuff they give you in the main mission should be enough. Walking bank. Gambling and minigames help out a ton here, but if you play the game for long enough, eventually you'll rack up the 10 million yen. Volunteer and Master Environmentalist both require Kiryu to pick up trash at the beach. There will always be something to pick up at the beach every time it loads in. Jumping in and out of the fishing game menu always resets the place, by the way. The wooden box always spawns on the left, and if it is empty, it counts as trash. The white box always spawns on the right, and sometimes pieces of trash under the ocean will spawn on either the left or right side. Just pick them up and reset until you have both trophies. Okay, now onto the big one, the most daunting trophy in this game, Minigame Master. For the first time in the series, simply participating in all the minigames is not enough. You have to go full throttle and beat all variations and difficulties of the 12 minigames, plus earn enough points for each of the 7 gambling games. On top of that, to get all the trophies for some of these, you will need to have achieved a feat that isn't necessarily required to achieve completion. That being said, let's break down how to achieve these trophies and completion in all the minigames. First up is the aromatherapy massage. Now this certainly is something. Visuals aside, the simple meter stabilization game can be a real trick. It is super finicky to control, as sometimes it is smooth sailing and sometimes it is as slippery as soap without any consistent pattern to it. It feels like it's trying to fight you, as the buttons won't have the same weight to them when the bar is in different quadrants and at different times, leading to a confusing experience. Trying to score points at the top early on is your best bet, and playing it safe to figure out how it works and maybe when you'll lose control, so to speak, is the way way to go. Remember, you can rely on the momentum of the bar without having to press any buttons sometimes, and pay close attention to when the momentum shifts from up to down or down to up. Overall, it's frustrating considering how quickly you can fail and how laser focused you have to be, but some patience and a few tries later, you should have the completion goal and also the trophy, considering that it simply requires you to get both massages, although the completion requires the top score. Darts is up next and returns to its dual analog stick controls. Now, I really like darts in these games and have sort of mastered the technique of landing your throws exactly where you want them. If you pull your right stick almost all the way down, what looks like 3/4 but feels like halfway, and release it immediately, it should land exactly where you are aiming with the left stick. Getting a hat trick for the trophy with this method, or any method that works for you, is easy enough, although it is tedious to have to beat all the opponents across both locations. Having to learn cricket wasn't the best either, but at least it wasn't random cricket or hidden cricket like that found in Yakuza 4. Once you play and win a boatload of matches, completion will be yours. Pool is up next, and oh man, is this ever broken in these remasters. Seriously, every patch notes release, which isn't many, but alas, has players questioning if they have fixed the pool, which is a bit confusing the first time when I saw it and hadn't really realized it or tried it out, except for like maybe 1 or 2 matches and everything seemed fine. But it was not fine. I believe the PS3 controller these games were mapped on for originally had a higher dead stick zone, where the PS4 controller does not, and thus the brokenness was created. See, you control the pull back and launch of your Q stick with the right analog stick, and you are supposed to control the sway direction, basically left, right, up and down, with the left analog stick. But for some reason in these games, the right stick can also control the sway, so unless you have the steadiest thumbs of all time, you're going to struggle. Luckily for me, there is some RNG at play, and even the most difficult of opponents will mess up and either sink balls they're not supposed to instantly lose, or manage to set up victories that are super easy for you to achieve. However, that is rare. I should know, I spent a total of 3 hours trying to win 1 game of rotation against the second hardest or advanced AI, and a total of 6 hours that day to get the completion goals. The trophy of breaking ace is also a pain, as sinking the 9-ball in, 9-ball, with the first strike is mostly luck based. I mean, the technique of, first playing alone and then placing the cue ball on the right while aiming for the middle and striking the ball with full power seems to have the best results. However, if this has you down, don't give up, mostly because after I finished Yakuza 3, I easily found a fix, of course. Naturally, just my luck. Thanks to YouTuber user 360 doodoo and this video, you can see that simply having a pen and some patience makes these games 100 times easier, and I'm glad I found that out before starting Yakuza 4. With that, the trophy should be your only struggle with Pool.
Yosh.
Next is karaoke, and there's not much to say here. There's a trophy for singing all the songs, and completion requires a score above 900 for all of them. If you can hit 90% of the notes, you should be fine, because if you can do that, then most of the hits will be a rank of great. The circle, square, and X prompts all follow the rhythm of the song, and you can easily pick up the triangle voice prompts after listening a few times. I like to knock these trophies out with Haruka and the hostesses, but I also do enjoy a good solo session of Kamurocho Lullaby.
ありがとうございました。
Bowling is next, and this can be really tough if you can't nail those strikes, which is very difficult. Practice and familiarity with the controls are probably your best friends here. There are a few techniques you can find, like going between the last 2 visible points on the right and aiming for the middlemost pin, or what you can see I try, going far left, spamming X to basically achieve the same thing. To get the trophy, completion, and have one sub-story fully completed all in one, you'll probably want to save just before you get challenged in the sub-story Death Bowler. Then try and get 3 strikes in a row in one game, and keep stacking up the strikes to achieve a 200 or above scored game. Next up is the Japanese gambling games, which I really enjoy. CeeLo is all about getting the highest number on your third die after managing to get the other two to match. There are other special combinations, both good and bad, like a triple throw and such, but that's basically the gist of it. Chohan is a pure guess game to see if the dice rolled will add up to an even or odd number. Koi Koi is my favorite, and is a simple card game that lets you create different combinations of hands, each worth different amounts of points. If you're brave enough after obtaining a hand worth something, you can call Koi and keep going at the risk of losing what you have. It's a very relaxing game, and it's probably for the best considering it takes me the longest to achieve completion, since I refuse to bump up the difficulty and therefore the wager amount. Lastly, we have Ushikabu, which is a simple game similar to Baccarat in that only the ones digit is counted, and whichever person, player or banker, has the highest wins. If it's a tie, the banker wins. It is also played with the Hanafuna cards, but the game gives you the numbers, so it's super easy. All the game's completion requires you to obtain a certain amount of tags. Luckily, losses don't count, so playing them should just be enough. And the trophy only requires a combined 300 tags of all the games, which is so far from the 10,000 tags or 20,000 you'll need for just the individual games alone that will come naturally. With the Japanese games down, it's time for the Western games. Pretty standard stuff here: blackjack, poker, and roulette. Cheat items that guarantee a favorable outcome here work wonders, although it is pretty nice to just sit back, relax, and play a few rounds. What's different here is that you have to win your 10,000 chips in a single session in blackjack, and have your wins, luckily not counting losses, in a single poker session amount to 10,000 chips. Have fun keeping track of that. With roulette, however, the 20,000 chips can be acquired at any time. There are some decent strats out there on how to maximize your winnings with cheat items, so make sure to save before you try them and to not sell any of the cheat items off. Once you're done with that, you might want to take some time and play the UFO catcher at both Sega arcade locations in Kamurocho. These machines are significantly easier than their real life claw machines, but the premise is the same. Hover the claw over the item you want and hope that the claw grips it with enough strength to carry it over to the deposit box. This is also a good time to remind everyone that the completion menu does exist in the main menu and keeps tracks of all what you need to do. Some items can only be found in certain locations, namely Sleeky Pyo-chan. Look, the black Pyo-chan. It's buried underneath a bunch of normal Pyo-chans and one big Pyo-chan. So just keep resetting until you see that and you will notice it. And if you don't, just change location. While you're still at the arcade, take some time to play Buxellos, because you'll need it for the Pro Gamer and obviously the Minigame Master Trophy, but also because it's kind of fun, especially once you get used to it. The basic premise is just to destroy or detach the glowing piece from the metal blobs. You'll know what I'm talking about when you play it. X is to shoot, and you can either press to fire one shot or hold down X to fire a long beam, which will then slow your movement. A mix between these two styles is essential. You can lean one way or the other. I like the fast burst of shots, but a mix is definitely necessary to reach level 50 and beyond. The timer in the bottom right determines how long you have left, but it doesn't start counting down until like 3 seconds into a level. So aiming to finish a level in those 3 seconds is your goal. Oh, and don't worry, you just need to make it to level 50, not actually beat the level itself. And also, you can one-shot some levels if you line your ship up with the glowing target perfectly. Once you reach a high score, I think that's level 50, and have caught 5 unique things from the UFO catcher, the trophy should be yours. Shogi is next, which is basically Japanese chess, and just like real chess, I have no idea how to play it. Not to worry though, because both the completion and the trophy can be achieved by following the instructions on how to beat challenge 1. You'll see it on the screen now, or you should be able to look it up yourself online. Anyways, do this once and the trophy should be yours, because you don't move your king, and do it 4 more times for a total of 5 and the completion will be yours.
済み
After that is Mahjong, a game Yakuza Kiwami taught me to love. I've played this more than any other minigame in my history with video games. Do note that this is the Japanese version of the game, so Richi Mahjong. Initially, I was heartbroken back in my Kiwami days, discovering I had to learn how to play this game to get the platinum. But once I learned it, thanks to this 3-hour video, I've been addicted ever since. Play enough rounds to get good, and play even more rounds, and you'll definitely hit the 50,000 points in one match. You'll know a match is over when you see you and your opponents ranked. The exposed dragon trophy is a little harder as you have to win with all but your final hand exposed, but attempt it enough times and the RNG will be in your favor.
リーチ一発薬杯ドラ3ハネマン
Ah yes, the all-American, and East Asian apparently, sport of baseball. The batting cages in Kamurocho provide a great place for Kiryu to practice his swings through various courses of scaling difficulties. The more courses progress, the more targets are available to you, plus a bonus 300 point target if you manage to light up all the squares. Also try hitting the lines connecting the squares to get a 2 and maybe even 3 at once. The trick to the batting in this game is to watch the bat, and when Kiryu tenses up his grip, which is usually more wobbly, hit X. Or if you're like me and not that fast, you can use this guide to see the speed of each pitch. The trick, once you know what the speeds are, is to count up and hit anything over and including 100 kilometers per hour on the count of 2. 1, 2. Anything below and including 80 kilometers per hour on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Once you have that down, the only tricky part is aiming with the left stick, which can be frustrating, but is at least more lenient than needing to be pixel perfect. Hitting 1800 or more on each course can be a bit difficult. It certainly took me a few tries, but as long as you don't miss too many swings, maximize the connecting edges, which has some crucial benefits as explained in the guide, and manage to hit consecutively, you should be a-okay, especially because you need to score a 2 at once connecting shot for the trophy. Golf is next, and once you get used to the controls, which are better in Yakuza 4 by the way, it is just a simple matter of practicing until you get that magical under 5 game for completion. A good thing to note here is that the game is very forgiving if you manage to land your ball on the flagpole and will, most of the time, drop it straight in. Use this to your advantage, especially on the shorter holes. For me, it's a relaxing game, and winning the tournament, which is the option you'll choose, nets you a cool 100,000 yen, so it's a really quick way to rack up the cash. At least that's how I managed to rack up 1,000,000 yen really quickly in Yakuza 4. Like I said, just keep on playing and you'll get it. Naturally, you'll probably get the trophy on one of the par 5s if you are playing enough for completion. But if you manage to score an under 5 game relatively quickly, use this advice for the trophy from the guide mentioned earlier. Use the driver, move the impact point up unless there's a high wind at your back, and give it a full power through the fairway on a par 5.
Yosh.
Last of the mini games is fishing, which is actually pretty simple to get used to. A few things to note: come with the right bait, as the light blue area is where the different bait will be effective. Follow the direction of the fish and don't be afraid to pull back at one when the meter goes too far red. Patience is key, and note the time of the day. That's right, different fish can come out at different times. I suggest this guide. Oh, and don't worry about tuna being the hardest fish. This just means two things: that they require a quicker hook time, so pay attention, and are placed much further back, so it'll take around 4 or 5 times longer than other fish to catch. I managed it on my first try with all the fish, so it's not that difficult. Tuna counts as one of the fish, so obviously once you have completion, you'll have the trophy. And that's it for Minigame Master Trophy. Whoo boy, was it ever the most satisfying trophy to get. I seriously didn't believe it was possible, especially with the requirements for pool, bowling, batting, and the massage. But when I went to check up on how far I'd progressed upon learning of the trophy's true nature, I discovered I had already completed the massage, bowling, and the particularly difficult task for Mojang. This put a fire under me that was almost extinguished by pool, but for some reason I persevered. I mean, turns out I didn't need to, I just needed to look hard enough on YouTube, but oh well. Once I had the trophy, the plat was as good as mine. I already had hit the Ultimate Challenger trophy, just by the way, and I was super ecstatic. I had done it. Despite all the blocks I put on myself before, I had managed to overcome them and proven to myself that I can really do what seems impossible. As silly as that might sound. The last set of challenges for the Ultimate Challenge trophy are found in the main menu. These are variations on different aspects of the main game, like fighting waves of enemies, fighting bosses, my favorite, different challenges also known as proving grounds, tag teams, and finally different boss rush scenarios. Those boss rushes are unlocked last and they're the toughest of them all and will really put you to the test. Luckily, you do not have to beat the very last one, but simply play it. You'll need to beat all the other 4 to unlock it though. These are so much easier with a guide, wink wink, and actually kind of fun. I will say some will frustrate you, but this is a real testing territory, and once you get used to the rest of the series, not just the game, this becomes significantly more easier. I do however have to say fuck one-hit states. The rest of the challenges allow for little mistakes, and it's actually more impressive to recover from them and still achieve the goal. Not allowing for a mistake with a one-hit sucks and I hate it. Also, there's no shame in looking up how others might have done a particular one. This is the big leagues and we all need help, so look it up. Just keep pushing and good luck. The Testament to Strength trophy, or the Legend Mode trophy, is the one always saved for last. Most games in this series let you play the game on Legend difficulty in a New Game Plus. Looking at you, Zero, that doesn't. In New Game Plus, you get to keep all your abilities, XP, money, and weapons. So combine that with the fact that beating the secret boss nets you the gun with infinite ammo, and you see why I prefer playing through the game once again with that setup. It's just a relaxing blast through enemies and bosses with the gun, and a nice trophy at the end. Oh yeah, just a note, you have to turn on cutscene skipping if that's your speed, so just bear that in mind. That's it then. All trophies achieved, a shiny platinum to your name, and an immense satisfaction in completing one of the best games I've played. I still prefer Kiwami 2, which I think is becoming one of my favorites. But Yakuza 3 is nothing to sneeze at, especially with a platinum run. Highly recommend the challenge, and I thank the game for giving me a difficult task to conquer this year, to really make me think I can achieve something. Like I said, these games have really come to be some of my favorites, so a huge thank you to RGG team and Sirixi for the best guides for these games you can find. If you made it this far, thank you. I hope this helped if you are trying to get this yourself, or maybe you just found it interesting enough to power through to the end. This will be, as I'm writing this, my longest project, and I didn't even know if it will flow well at all, but I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly had a lot of fun recounting my experience, and I really hope I can inspire just one person to check out the series. There are so many good Yakuza videos that you can check out there. I'll put one I think is particularly good somewhere related to this video, and if that or this piques your interest, I really encourage you to check out the series or one of its spin-offs. Okay, thanks for sticking all the way to the end. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you'll check out one of the Yakuza games. Thanks for watching.